Hi, welcome to Camp Happy Mail. I'm so glad that you decided to join me again for another Wednesday video. So today we're going to make this easy birthday card. It is simply a stamped image with some stenciling, and there is no coloring. So this one is quick and easy and a great idea if you need a quick card. The stamp set that we're going to use today is by Penny Black. She does some really great hedgehogs, and I'll link this set below, but we're going to use this little guy here floating up there with the umbrella. And then we're going to use this stencil set from Pretty Pink Posh. It's a 3-piece stencil set. And then I have a birthday sentiment from Woodware stamps. Now, in this box, this is backgrounds. As you've seen from some of my videos already, I like to do techniques. And when I do techniques, I end up with a ton of backgrounds. And that's what this box is. I do try to use the backgrounds that I create, but there's always some left over, and this is where I keep them. Kind of reminds you of that big box of colored images that I have, doesn't it? So these are all different techniques that were done. These ones were scrap papers that were pieced together and then run through an embossing folder. Some of these had stenciling on them. There's other ones in this box that have heat embossing done on them. There's some that are watercolor. There's some that are colored with markers. There are others that were done with watercolor pens or markers or pencils. There's some that were ink smooshed. There's some that were done with gel print. All different kinds of backgrounds. So basically I'm going through this box and I'm just trying to find some pieces that I can use as a background. Yeah, I could go ahead and create a brand new background for this, but why do that when I have this whole box full of pieces? And I know some of these look just like scraps that you wouldn't use, but they're really great for cutting sentiments and things like that out of. Yeah, you never waste good medium. So so I'm just going to go through here and pick out some that I think might work as a background for this card, and then we'll get started on making this card. Now that I've got some pieces picked out, I'm going to lay these out to take a look and determine which one I want to use for this card. So that piece that looks like it's checkered, that's the blue and yellow and green when it's on the left. That one was a stencil with re-inkers mixed with water sprayed through it. The one right next to it, the pastel one, was watercolor. The blue one was a gel press. The rainbow colored striped ones there, that was ink blended through a stencil. And then the one with the blue and the pink stripes, that was watercolor, as well as the pastel one next to it. So I've got a card base here. This is an A2 size card, which is a 4 1/4 by 5 1/2, or half a sheet of 8 1/2 by 11 cut in half. So now I'm just going to lay these out, trying to figure out which ones I want to use with that stamp. I go back and forth a little bit on this. I'm a little bit indecisive of what I want to do, because I think a lot of these would have worked just fine. Well, after looking at all the options, I decided I'm going to use this turquoise and pink striped one. Again, that's watercolor that was done on that paper. And now I'm just going to take and figure out where I want to line up the hedgehog with the balloon and the sentiment at. The next step in the process of this card is to do some stenciling. Now, the stenciling is not messy, and you really don't need to have a craft mat to do this. I just happen to have mine handy, so I got it out. And I'm just going to put my watercolor paper down here, and then I'm going to take a look at this stencil. So this stencil set is by Pretty Pink Posh, and it is called Layered Party Hat Stencils. There are 4 stencils in here. There is... Okay, that top one up there has stars on it. The next one down is the tassels that go on the hats, and then the outline of the hats, and then that one in the front has stripes and polka dots on it. So I'm just playing with these now to figure out which way these need to be lined up. This is a new to me stencil, and I'm just trying to figure out which ones I want to use to make the decorations on my background. So next I'm going to tape my paper down so that it doesn't move underneath the stencil. And I originally thought that I was going to do all 4 stencils, and starting out with the one with the hat so that I would know where to put all of the other ones. I do change my mind on this after I get the paper taped down, and I laid this down, and then I'm going to put the stamps on top of that. And after looking at this, I realized that I didn't really want to do it that way. So I changed my mind on which stencil I was going to use, and instead I pulled out the one that had the stars on it. I just thought some simple stars on the background would be a good way to go with this, rather than having the full party hats. I thought that having the full party hats would take away from the hedgehog and the balloons because the party hats are kind of large. So I'm going to get the stencil taped down, and then I'm going to put the stamps on here to make sure that they fit where I want them to go. And the ink that I've pulled out here is Stampin' Up. That is Bubble Bath and I believe Balmy Blue. So we're going to get these open and then we're going to start to stencil. So I just zoomed this in a little bit, and I apologize that the video quality is a little bit blurry now. I wasn't aware that that was going to happen if I tried to zoom this in actually using the video editing software. I need to figure out how to do that on my camera, how to zoom in while I am recording the video. But we'll get there. So all I'm doing right now is I have an Altenew blending brush. This is one of the really skinny ones that they make, and it just has really tiny bristles on it. And I'm just using my Stampin' Up ink, and I'm ink blending into the little stars. It doesn't take a whole lot of ink to cover these. You can also use any ink that you have to do this. One thing you'll notice is I have the stamp on the on top of the stencil, and that's so that I can tell which stars I need to ink blend in around that stencil so that they don't show up over top of the hedgehog or the words. The process will be the same to ink blend the pink ink through the stars, just as we did the blue. So now you'll see I'm going to just slightly move the hedgehog stamp just a little bit because I want to get some of the stars that were closer to him. But again, I don't want to do the ones that are directly underneath him because I don't want them to show up through his body, because we're not planning to color this. So you're going to see the background color through this stamp. So I'm just going to carefully move him around so I can get some of the other stars around him. And then we'll finish off the stenciling on this. Now that we're done with the stenciling, I'm just going to remove the stencil and then carefully remove the mint tape off of our watercolor panel. The mint tape doesn't really stick that well, so you don't have to really worry about it tearing your paper, which is great. So now using the Misty, because this is watercolor paper and it does have a texture to it, and I might want to stamp it more than one time to get a good impression. So I'm just going to put the watercolor panel into the Misty, and because we planned ahead with that stencil and we kind of figured out where we wanted to put the hedgehog and the sentiment, now in the Misty we can easily put them into place and get ready to stamp these. Having done that little bit of pre-planning just makes it so much easier. So I am using Memento Tuxedo black ink on this. Even though I'm not coloring this image, this is still a great permanent ink to use, and you get a nice crisp black stamp impression from it. And like I said, I might have to stamp this 1 or 2 times. I don't remember if I show that on here or not, but I'm just inking this up really well, and then I'm going to go ahead and press this over onto my paper. You're going to see me using my sleeve here. And Allie, yeah, I'm sorry. My friend Allie, who is a card maker, got me a stamping tool. Kind of reminds you of an air hockey puck, like the handle thing. And I forgot to use it on this. So I simply just used the sleeve of my shirt. Sorry, Allie. And here I'm going to do that again, because I just wasn't thinking. And your sleeve does work just fine. You don't need to have the stamping tool. It is nice to have it. It makes it a little bit easier. And you just have to remember that you don't need a whole lot of pressure to get a good impression, because you can stamp 2 or 3 times. And also, if you apply a lot of pressure to the Misty door, you risk warping that door. Ask me how I know. So, okay, so now that we've got this far, the stamping is done, and all I have to do is figure out what do I want the rest of this card to look like. So I pulled out some pink paper. This is Stampin' Up paper. This is Bubble Bath. It matches the ink that I used to ink blend, although the ink blending looks a little bit darker. That's only because I went over it several times. And I've decided that maybe this would look better with a black mat. Maybe that would stand out a little bit better. But I still wasn't sure at this point if I wanted to use the black. because I had this other paper sitting over to this side, and this was a Stampin' Up! Paper. This is retired, I don't remember what it's called, but it's kind of a purple shimmery color. The purple, I believe, was Fresh Freesia or something like that. Anyways, I thought maybe this card needed something just a little bit sparkly to it because it was kind of dull looking. Now, it's cute, but it just needed a little extra, and honestly, anytime I can add a little bit of sparkle to a card, I'm definitely going to do that because a little bit of sparkle just adds a little something extra to them. So I'm going to go ahead and pull out the die cut machine and get out those nesting dies and figure out which die I need to use to make a nice little frame around this. So basically the way that I figured out what size the frame should be on this is I took a look at my dies and pulled one out to try to figure out what size was that original panel cut from, because it does have a stitched border on it that you can't see on this video. But I knew that it was cut with one of these dies. So once I figured out which one that was, then I just pulled the next size up because that gives you a really nice frame. So we're going to go ahead and die cut that size out of the purple paper, and then we'll be ready to assemble this card. So before I move forward with assembling this card, I decided that piece of purple shiny paper, I really wanted to take a section out of that to use on another card that I had sitting over to this side. I didn't have another sheet of this purple paper, and this is a trick that card makers do sometimes, and the recipients never know that we do this. But if you have a nice piece of paper like this shiny purple paper, you can take a die cut or a die and you can cut out the centerpiece of it. You want to make sure that whatever you're going to put over top of this will cover that hole, because you're going to fill up that hole with just a regular piece of cardstock. But then you can take that extra piece that you just cut out of the middle and you can use that on either the same card or you can use it on a different card, and nobody will ever know that you did that. That's probably one of my most favorite tricks, and I love to do that whenever I'm short on metallic paper or if I just have a piece of specialty paper. So you're going to see now, okay, you see the big hole in that paper there. So I'm just going to use regular household Scotch tape, and I'm going to tape that regular piece of cardstock in there. And the reason why you want to replace it with a piece of cardstock is so that when your card is all put together, you don't want your panel that's going over that specialty piece to sag down in the middle. Sometimes it will, sometimes it won't, but you don't want to take that chance because you don't want the recipient to know that, you actually didn't use the full sheet of specialty paper on their card. You're just giving the impression that you did. See, just like that. You can't even tell. It's a great trick. I highly recommend it. You're going to see that in a lot of videos that I do because I like to stretch my paper as far as I possibly can. And quite honestly, some of the specialty papers are just expensive. So you might as well get, good use out of them. So now we're going to just glue this panel down. And I'm going to speed this up while I'm gluing because, watching somebody put glue on the back of a panel is kind of like watching paint dry. Now that we've got this loaded with glue on the back, we're just going to press this down onto our purple shiny paper. Because the shiny paper is not porous as much as a piece of cardstock is, and because the watercolor paper has texture, if you do this combination, you want to make sure that you press it down good and well, just to make sure that you get a good adhesion between the two of them. So now we're just going to line this up on here and make sure that everything fits without us having to trim it. And we're going to glue this panel. And then we're going to lay this panel down on top of our card base. And again, you want to push this down to make sure that it's all adhered really well. With having that piece of other paper taped on the inside of there, you just want to make sure to press it down good and well because you don't want this to come apart. Whenever I'm using specialty papers like this in multiple layers like this, I also like to just flip it over and use my bone folder to just give it a good hard burnishing across the back, and that just kind of helps things stick together a little bit better. Okay, so after looking at this, I decided that, the balloon needed a little bit of something extra. There are those hearts on the balloon, and I didn't really want to color them, but I wanted to give them a little bit of dimension. So I pulled out some Nuvo drops, and I originally pulled out a light pink, but after testing that on some paper, I decided maybe I needed to use a darker pink. So basically, I'm just going to take the Nuvo drops and I'm going to squirt them out on the paper here to get it started. Nuvo drops are actually kind of cool. They dry glossy and they dry with a little bit of dimension to them. And so I'm going to go ahead and zoom this in a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing here. I apologize for my head getting in the way here a little bit, but I did need to be right over top of this so that I could see where I was putting the Nuvo drops, because the hearts are kind of small. And so basically I'm just carefully squeezing out a little bit of the Nuvo drops into each of the hearts, trying to be careful not to smear them, but trying to not get peaks on them as well. I wanted them to dry smooth. They will dry with a little bit of dimension to them, which is the nice thing about them. It just adds a little something extra, kind of like that shiny paper adds something a little extra. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish adding these in, and then we will see the final card. And with the hearts colored in, we can call this card done. So I hope that you enjoyed today's video and seeing how to make a quick, easy birthday card with limited supplies. And I hope to see you in the next video. Thanks.